I've had a marketing meeting. 2 people fucking hate the record. My radio guy is not totally sure. We need to reassess what we're doing here. How do we feel about it?
I want to talk to you about A&R. What's the main role of an A&R in 2025 from your lens?
From my lens, the main role of an A&R person is to identify talent and convince the rest of the label to care.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I think you identify something that you feel is compelling, and then your job is to get a deal done that feels ambitious around the project and basically convince the team that are working the record that this is going to be the second coming and drive the ambition of that record through the company, which is a very hard thing to do.
So take me through that. What does that look like? Because I don't think people understand that you actually have to really rally the troops at the label, right? So like, what does that look like? And do you have an example of what you did?
Yeah, I think just sort of broadly speaking, I think what it looks like is we have A&R meetings every week. So you do an A&R meeting, an A&R guy would bring in a artist that they think is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
We'd sort of look at their data. We'd sort of look under the bonnet of the, what you call it, the trunk. Is it trunk here? Bonnet? I'm not sure.
The trunk, yeah.
You look under the trunk, and you look into the project, you'd look at the data, you'd see whether it's got engagement, whether social media is happening, whether the artist is good live, whether the artist is compelling, and you'd sort of try and build some sort of idea of what the artist proposition is.
Mm-hmm.
And then what would happen is the A&R and me as the head of A&R would sort of look at what a deal would look like, potentially.
Okay.
So we'd say, okay, this artist is potentially the next Amy Winehouse. It's going to take X amount of records to get to that place. It's going to take this amount of budget. But we think based on what we've seen here, if we do X, Y, and Z, we can get it to the Holy Grail. And we've got the characters on the floor, as in the marketing, the sort of team that can actually drive the project through.
Are you talking to the marketing team as well when you're?
Yeah. I think at the start, after the A&R meetings, normally, so if it's something that we love and we really feel is a goal, we bring a marketing person in and we'd have a conversation about what are the sort of moves we've got to make to try and make this work. So before we've done, yeah. So you have to feel like you can actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what we used to do at EMI, there'll be a girl called, I think Lucy Dan, who was like head of marketing, and we'd find something that we love and we'd sort of go, look, we want to sign this. We think we need it to be a few albums. We'll start off with an EP. And then she would come in and she would go, okay, cool. That timeline feels okay. The deal doesn't feel great, but we need to sort of tweak this and tweak that in terms of what we're going to spend on the artist. And then if we feel we've got a chance of actually breaking the artist, then we go and put an offer in.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And obviously most people back themselves. Most people are there to try and make sure they can break the artist. So a lot of the time people sort of push deals through thinking they can do it and then sign the artist, and then it becomes a lot more tricky than they thought.
Yeah.
And then other times, and I think you find that with smaller labels, you have a small crack team of people that are really zoomed in and focused on what the proposition is, and you're able to sort of move through the label. As long as you've got the co-sign from the president, I think you can deliver a project.
All right, everybody, we're going to take a little break, because if you're listening and thinking, fuck, I could really use some guidance right now, and you're serious about building your career in the music industry, I'm now offering private strategy sessions. These are fully personalized, just you and me tackling whatever you need in your career. With over 16 years of experience working with artists, managers, and brands, I can help you map out your next moves. Now, whether that's structuring your team, scaling your brand, navigating the industry, even figuring out what steps to take, whether to go to a distributor or to a record label, and figuring out what are the best deal points. I can help you with your career with where you're at. You can now book a one-on-one with me through my Calendly, and you can find the link in the description. Now let's get back to the pod. Yeah, Nick Raff was actually talking to me about that. He says he only signed 2 artists every year, even when he was at Capitol, and it was like a team of 11.
Yeah.
Someone both you and I know.
Yeah. And so with Nick is like the exception. I think Nick he's so confident and so like obsessive in his approach.
Right.
And with him and Joe Charrington, who he worked with for a long time, they were sort of the exception to the rule. I think a lot of other labels were signing lots of things, hoping that one thing will go. But I think because of how their deal was structured and how they sort of did their business, they were able to sort of really not do the volume game.
Yeah.
They were able to tap in and really zoom in on that. But I think that sort of speaks to Nick's character
Yeah.
which is what we sort of should talk about as well. I think what you'll find, the common sort of timeline with a lot of these superstar artists is somebody at the top who's super obsessive. You've got like a borderline madman in the mix who's the sort of president of the label, or someone who's just relentlessly sort of focused on breaking the artist, who has control of the budgets.
Yeah. You know what I actually appreciate a lot from the folks in the UK? Very honest and transparent. There's no really beating around the bush. It never, and I could be wrong.
Yeah.
You would know better. You've been in it for 18 years, and I'm sure you're going to say, no, you're seeing it from the outsider perspective. But like, I never really experienced much of the politics of the folks in the UK.
Yeah.
But what I did experience were when they thought I was getting something wrong from the manager perspective, they're letting me know.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I'm not a confrontational person. Maybe I am. I don't know. But like, I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah.
But UK managers just
I think
always getting into.
The UK culture is quite it's a little bit cold, so it's quite clinical.
Yeah.
We're quite direct. We're quite sort of like, and the ones who do really well are the ones that sort of really sift through the BS quickly.
Yeah.
They're very efficient at sort of, if there's a problem, just dealing with it straight away and having the conversation and moving through it, sort of thing.
Yeah. And the one person I'm thinking about is somebody that both you and I have had experience with, is Tom March.
Oh, he's the best.
He's the best.
This guy, he's just so like, he's so focused. It's crazy. He's the sort of person where the train's moving, you just got to hold on to it with him, because he's fucking going. When it's go time, if he sniffs something that might work, or it's half a chance of working, I'm not seeing anybody as tapped in as him when he feels like it's going to go.
Yeah, I believe that. I mean, I've lots of meetings with him, lots of conversations, and he's just thinking about this like in so many different angles and giving you so many.
No, he's brilliant. I've done a bunch of deals with him. When I was at Polydor, him and Ben both ran Polydor Records, and
Ben Mortimer,
another legendary A&R guy, co-president at Polydor, and Tom. I remember we did the Stefflon Don deal, which was super competitive.
Yeah.
And once Tom got the bit between his teeth, and Ben, to be fair to him, like there was no one beating us on this deal. Like there was no one. He was just like absolutely all over it. Like
so. Talk to me through that a little bit, because one of the questions I do have is like, what does separate a good executive from a great executive and a superstar executive like that? So like, how is it that Tom and you guys maneuvered to make that deal happen that was so competitive?
I think there's a few things. I think whenever you're in a new role at a big major company, I think there's a honeymoon period,
right?
In which you've got, like, I call it the honeymoon period. It's like within the first 6 months to a year, you get a bit of grace from the powers above them, and they're encouraged to sort of be ambitious and go for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you can catch your president in that window where they're not getting slaps about their budgets yet, and they're sort of laying down their sort of plans of how they're going to sort of move the label forward, sort of thing, I think you can get into some really competitive deals and have them engaged.
Yeah.
But also I think it's down to character traits too.
Yep.
I think, and you see it a lot with these sort of guys that have done really, really well, especially people like Tom and Ben and Nick Raphael, and even I'd go as far to say like Ben Cooks of the world, who used to run Atlantic. They're all very sort of, I don't think they're in real fear of failing. I think they're just ruthlessly sort of ambitious and are able to sort of weather critique quite well.
Yeah.
I just think there's a common trait between them all, which is just like, when it's go time, they just go and they don't see anything else.
That's amazing, and that's great. But you've also done some great things. You're known as one of the great executives, A&Rs from the business.
Yeah.
What about yourself? What do you think? What do you think is the difference between you and somebody that's a good A&R versus a great A&R?
For me, I've always like, I pride myself on being happy to go to war for my artists. I pride myself on me and the artist being a crew. Yeah. Regardless of where I work, it's me and the artist or crew, and my job is to go and fight for you and run through wars. I've got my own taste. Sometimes I'm right and sometimes I'm wrong, but I've always, if I'm with a superstar, and you know it, you can smell it on them. When you're with someone you know, who you trust creatively, you feel who is the person, even if I'm not sure, my sort of real strength is backing them.
Yeah.
And going into a room and articulating myself through the labels and through the budgets and navigating the lawyers and doing all that side in the name of the person or the artist that I'm representing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I because I came from management before, I've always had the management approach to A&R.
Yeah.
So it was always us against the world. Like, do you know what I mean? It's always us against like, let's have it. I know I'm part of a label, but I'm your guy, and I'm gonna give you a call every now and then and tell you the real. We've had a marketing meeting. 2 people fucking hate the record. My radio guy is not totally sure. We need to reassess what we're doing here. How do we feel about it?
And you're having these honest conversations with the artists.
With artists, we have those conversations, and artists will be like, okay, and they'll go, they're wrong. Fuck you. This is the song, and I go, cool. And I go back into the room, and I'd be like, you lot are wrong. Let's fucking have it, sort of thing, and to my detriment or to my sort of benefit. But I think having that sort of attitude with artists that you really, really believe in, I think is a difference on projects.
Yeah.
And also, like, I think, and I always say this to some of my young A&R guys, like, to a degree, you're chasing being fired. And that sounds messed up. But you're chasing that feeling of that risk of, like, do or die. And I think a lot of the people that have massive wins or those sort of similar sort of, they do stuff. They either run marathons, they do martial arts, they do stuff, but they're chasing that thing of like being on the edge of that cliff and might potentially being pushed off it.
All right, everybody, we're going to take a little break because if you're listening and thinking, fuck, I could really use some guidance right now, and you're serious about building your career in the music industry, I'm now offering private strategy sessions. These are fully personalized, just you and me tackling whatever you need in your career. With over 16 years of experience working with artists, managers, and brands, I can help you map out your next moves. Now, whether that's structuring your team, scaling your brand, navigating the industry, even figuring out what steps to take, whether to go to a distributor or to a record label and figuring out what are the best deal points, I can help you with your career with where you're at. You can now book a one-on-one with me through my Calendly, and you can find a link in the description. Now let's get back to the pod. What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions about the A&R game?
I think some of the biggest misconceptions are that an A&R man is the total reason why you win or you lose. I think sometimes artists sign to an A&R person, and if it doesn't work out, they think it's because the A&R person isn't good or bad. And I think A&Rs are only as good as the artists they sign.
Yep.
And I think sometimes when artists get signed to record labels, they stop doing the work they did before they got signed. So obviously you plug into a team of people that are there to sort of service every part of your campaign, whether it be marketing, social media and whatnot. And I think often you get a nice advance. You get a marketing person to check in and do your scheduling. You get all those things that you didn't have before. And I think it's very easy to sort of lean into that and rely on that and lose the urgency of what you had before. And I've seen that over and over and over, like the hunger sort of be dulled on entry to a front line.
The complacency.
Yeah, the complacency.
Yeah, I've said the same thing as well, and I've said this before. You know, when I first did the deal with Jesse and Byron over at Universal, I remember doing the deal. We did the sign on the dotted line, or she signed on the dotted line, and then we went to go grab dinner. And I remember sitting down at dinner, and this is a great deal, big deal.
Massive deal. I remember at the time, we were all chasing the deal.
Yeah, right.
It was like the biggest at the time. I think it was the biggest deal in the world. I think because there was a lot of talk about Lucian caring, which is sort of always has a massive effect on anything.
Right.
And I remember I remember like every A&R meeting, it's like, who's going to sign Jesse Reyes? What's going on? Oh, you know Maurizio. You've been to Canada, right? We had all those conversations. I remember thinking, yeah, no, I could reach out. But
yeah.
Sort of like, it was going to do what it was going to do. So
yeah. But and when we did that deal, it's funny you say all that because we were pretty self-sufficient in a lot of ways because I had a lot of that visibility from the production side of things. But that's where we met in Toronto, right? In like 2014, when I was executive producer of Mad Rock and we were doing all these music videos. But I just saw a lot of that as well too with artists whenever they get into a label system where they would get complacent. Managers would get complacent. And I remember when we did the deal, we went and had dinner and I remember sitting there with Jesse Byron and David Jacobs, and I said to Jesse, I'm like, this is amazing that we did this deal, but this is day one.
Yeah.
Like, this is just day one. Like, now we're like, this is where the real work starts. And we're all like, yeah, of course. Like, we were all aligned on that. It's like so to me, I think it's very important that the artist management team understand, yes, you have the support of a record label, but you also have to be more engaged than ever because now you have partners, right?
Yeah.
And when you have partners in this situation, it's not just, those partners are there to help you, but you want to also show them like, this is why we're working together.
They can only amplify. They can't
exactly.
create. They can only amplify
100%.
because they feed off your energy.
Yeah.
If you've got an artist who's all over it, there's nothing better than an artist going into a planning meeting with a ton of ideas and a very clear direction creatively of what they are. Like nothing, because you're giving them no room to fuck it up.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Because obviously all the marketing departments, all the majors have budgets, and they have to spend those budgets, and they have to spend the money in a way that helps the artist. And I don't think anybody at major record labels believes or intends to do bad jobs. But what I think I see happen sometimes is the artist gets signed, they go into a major record label, and with some sort of with a vision which hasn't been articulated properly within the team that work in the record, and then the label starts spending money in areas that probably don't need spending at the start. And I think that's where a good manager comes into place, who's sort of talking day to day with the product manager, and making sure you're putting all this sort of energy in the right place, sort of thing. But ultimately, at major labels and the smaller labels, everybody has jobs. Everyone wants to feel like they're doing their job and they're contributing to these projects. So it's the manager and the artist's sort of responsibility to make sure that their teams are people that are actually adding value.
Yeah. And communicating that vision.
Communicating that day to day, not just, but they feed off the energy of what you're doing already. So when I had a group called N-Dubs in the UK, we were touring already before we got a big deal. We were like, we had an ecosystem of things happening where we relied on ourselves only. We're making our own records. It was all we're producing our own records. It was all internal. So by the time we plugged in, it was very hard for somebody to undo what we were doing. Mm-hmm. Which made it easier, which made it clearer for the majors and the labels that we're with to do a good job, because they had less room to fuck it up.
That's kind of how it was with us as well too, because we were moving without the labels, right? And we were just moving forward. So they got to see that and say like, no, these people are on there, and Jessie would go into meetings and communicate her vision very articulately. It was basically going to go happen with or without, it seemed like at that time.
And how long before you'd got signed had Jessie been sort of developing herself before?
Well, from the moment we put out figures to the day that we did the deal was 6 months, exactly 6 months. But before that, developing, I mean, Jessie will tell you that she's been developing ever since she was 4 years old. She like putting on shows for her parents at Celia Cruz when she was a kid. So, but I started working with her probably 18 months before we did the deal, and Byron came on. Maybe 18 to 24 months. Byron came on maybe 12 months after that. But yeah, from the moment of figures to the deal was 6 months.
But I think that time period you're talking about beforehand is partly why it works.
Yeah.
It's because you were able to figure out the sort of difficult stuff and the sort of creative sort of direction of it pre-entry.
Totally.
Which is the challenge. At the moment we're in a world of data where we can see everything up front. So we can look at Chartmetric or whatever. We can see whether your engagement's big. We can see everything. So people chasing virality. I think we spent the last 4 years chasing virality and overspending on virality and not substance. And I think the tide is shifting at the moment, and I think it's a really healthy place to be right now.